The Halion Chronicles. The protectorate of Hellas stands at the edge of war. Titans stir, and ancient machines whisper in the void. Beneath the crimson grays of Thanatos, fate is cast in steel and circuitry. The Olympians walk among the mortals, spinning their schemes. Myth do not endure, they break, they burn, they fall. Only those bold enough to defy fate may earn their place among legend. Your cyber saga journey continues now. Exposed. The priest's head was hooded, and his eyes lost in the shadow of a cowl dark as obsidian, embroidered with fine green filigree that shimmered faintly in the torchlight. In the gloom, his silhouette stood sharp and angular, like a splinter of night itself. He carried a staff of twisted iron, crowned with a skull bound in tarnished copper wire, which struck the cobblestone in a slow, ritual rhythm as he approached the caravan. L'Aqua of the Yellowstones extends her greetings to the guardians of the underworld. We bring you our sacrifice, Sarala announced in broken Elysia tongue. The Elysia tongue, native to the eastern Shardlands and the dry, jagged mountains that loomed beyond, was a sharp, lilting dialect, staccato in cadence, with clipped vowels and an abundance of aspirants. Though its roots ran deep in the ancient Gaian record, it had simply splintered into dozens of local variants. Here in Tuul, it was not unheard of. Traders and wanderers from the eastern ranges brought its inflections to the city. It was distinct from, but not unintelligible to speakers of common Hellenic, the dominant tongue in most of Hellas, and often used for bartering when neutrality or obscurity was preferred. The priest turned briefly to the approaching couple, his gaze unreadable beneath the veil of shadow cloaking his face. He said nothing. With a slow pivot, he redirected his attention to the caravaneers, who instinctively kept their distance from the ghoulish Bythoner. Without pause, he began his inspection of the cargo, his skeletal fingers sliding across the seams of corroded armor, lifting blood-caked fabrics and prodding at worn fishing implements tangled among the concorded, lifeless bodies. "Look away, scam! If they catch your eyes, you'll be their next sacrifice," Thrish overheard Korn chiding his son in Squeak, a high-pitched, nearly inaudible dialect spoken only by Ratman. Its tones were incomprehensible to caimans and beasts alike, a secret tongue passed down in the burrows. Skem, curious and still far too young to understand the weight of this place, peeked from behind a sledge at the hooded priest with wide, unblinking eyes. Thrish tilted his head slightly, puzzled. Why had Sari sent Korn, of all people, through the Shardlands to Tuul, and with his son no less? Korn was no diplomat, nor was he known for religious fervor. It wasn't Sari himself who had joined the journey, but rather Miruva, the elder who had long opposed him in council, ostensibly leading the caravan on a spiritual pilgrimage. Sari had remained behind at the Crystal Mound, citing age and frailty. Yet it was whispered that he still pulled the string of the tribe with cunning fingers. Rumors muttered of growing unrest among the elders, of quiet meetings, and dangerous decisions made under veils of incense and shadow. here stood Quorn, silent and vigilant, his son at his side, watching everything and saying little. Thrish wondered whether this voyage bore only prayers and corpses, or if something unspoken traveled with them, quiet and coiled beneath the surface. The priest gestured with a flick of his skeletal fingers, summoning wraith-like laborers who drifted out of the mist like specters. They moved with solemn grace, lifting the corpses with reverent precision. Each body was carried towards a shadowed courtyard, where rows of low-burning braziers lit a grim procession of open carriages lined with black canvas. The air thickened with a coppery scent of blood and old flesh. The priest moved among the fallen like a merchant appraising goods, pausing to lift an arm, press along a rib cage, or gently prod a blooded thigh with the iron tip of his staff. He peeled back tattered garments and flaked away dried gore with indelicate fingers. His voice, low and rasping, issued muttered appraisals: weight, age, purity of flesh, presence or absence of infestations. Casually, he clicked his tongue or gave a subtle nod, marking a body for a better bin. When he came across one corpse with a fuller belly and intact limbs, he grunted with a tone that might have been approval, poking the guts as if judging a ripe fruit. A collapsed skull earned only disinterest. The priest muttered to his laborers in a low guttural cadence, more gesture than language, and they immediately hoisted it towards a lesser cart. As the last body was assessed, the priest straightened with unnatural stillness. His gaze fell on Thrish and lingered. Unreadable, he did not speak. "Get him to pay for the load," Sarah murmured, nudging Trish's side with quiet insistence. He swallowed and stepped forward, nodding faintly as the priest approached with glacial intent. Trish's wiry fur stood on end, his heart thudding like a drum in his chest. This trade was vital for the Yellowstone. These corpses were more than a husk of the dead. They were coin and promise, grist for survival. Every pot meant another day survived, another elder kept fed for the cold nights in the Crystal Mound. Bythoner has called from the deads, and the Yellowstones have answered the summons with this offering. Caravan, the priest murmured in common Hellenic, his voice emerging like smoke from the abyssal dark of his hood. He stood unmoving, yet the weight of his presence reached out like a net. Thrish became aware of temple guards stationed along the nearby wall, figures barely more than silhouettes in the gloom, but their posture betrayed watchfulness. The eyes gleamed like wet stone beneath the flickering firelight. The Bythoner of Tuul had long since evolved beyond the priesthood. What remained was an arcane order of armed seers and bone mask watchers, tasked with containing the dangers that seeped from the rift. The haunted plutons, those aberrant caimans who clawed their way free of Hades' grasp, but there were also magistrates and forces, and quietly the puppeteers of Tuul's darkest trades, especially the relics, festering tokens of the titans that were outlawed yet thrived here, so long as the right palms were greased. The temple offers your tribe 2 pots per corpse, the priest said, voice flat and cold, all belongings included. The underworld would not ignore this sacrifice. He paused for a moment, Trish imagined a flicker of arrogance, perhaps even amusement, curving beneath that abyssal hood. But it may have been no more than the trembling of torchlight across deep black. Sweat prickled beneath Trish's fur. 2 pots. Far too low. The elders would never accept it. Lacqua prophesied that here in Tuul the priesthood would ensure the tribe's survival, with 10 pots per ancestor. He replied, steady but firm. That had long been the going price. A hand of pots for the dead, more if the soul had been devout or well-born. Your wares are poor. Unknown rats, no fine tools, no crafted garments, no relics of note. Too little flesh cling to their bones. The priest shot back with venomous disdain. Or do you mean to drag them back across the shards and hope they ripen on their way? He tilted his head, amused. Take the 2, return to Lacqua. He waited, still as the dead he traded in. Trish could feel the game at play. The priest relished the haggling, the delicate dance of control and disdain. But numbers didn't lie. A few hundred pots at best. Nowhere near enough to barter for food from the Demeter or Clespian merchants. Starvation would bite deeper, and unrest, already festering in the yellow stone, would swell to rupture. His clawed fingers fumbled at the flap of his satchel, his mind searching for something, anything, to shift the balance. His thoughts raced, calculating the weight of each option. The leather creaked under his touch, the bag's contents jangling soft in the dim silence. His hands hovered uncertainly, moving with the absent motion of thought, as if the weight of his satchel might offer clarity. All path seems perilous. Still he fumbled, stalling, weighing, searching for a way to tip the scales. Lacqua's tribe is starving. We need the pots to survive the great cycle, Trish said, trying to evoke compassion, though he knew full well it was wasted breath. This priest had long since passed beyond the reach of hunger or empathy. Fine, the priest replied dryly. Bring more corpses next time. He remained motionless, shrouded in silence, awaiting Trish's next move with theatrical patience. Serala shifted beside him, restless, her tail lashing the cobblestone in frustration. Trish bristled at the priest's callousness, but forced himself to stay composed. Arguing would change nothing. Only leverage or danger stirred the hearts of these robed carrion men. You give us 10 each, and I will forget that I lost this. Trish withdrew a small flat object wrapped in cracked leather scraps, worn soft from years hidden among the rotten salt. He peeled the wrapping away with a deliberate hand, revealing a green, squared plate, its edges jagged where time or force had broken it. In the flickering torchlight, silver filaments webbed across its surface, intersecting like frozen lightning over tiny-edged ridges that rose like the ruins of a shattered city. Among them, strange segmented pots appeared embedded in neat rows, their shape unnatural, like carapaces half melted into glass. Golden dots flickered faintly across its corners, and a barely perceptible blue glow pulsed in slow rhythm along the lines, like breath still to slumber. waiting. The item buzzed with a quiet tension, a ghost of dormant purpose. Even now, held still in Trish's hand, it seemed to hum against the air. Thrish took a step forward and extended the relic. The silence it summoned was instant. Serala gasped, a sharp intake that cut through the murmuring dark. Her tail stiffened, quivering. She knew what he had done. A death sentence. He had brought a relic of the Titans into the open, into the heart of Tuul's gloom, and dangled it in full view of the priesthood. Silence fell thick as smoke. The nearest temple guard, sharp-eyed and coiled like a trap, moved closer, his shard spear catching the firelight in cold flashes. The priest stepped forward, without a word, drawn towards the relic, as if tethered by invisible cords. As he neared, the shadows under the hood began to surrender their hold. Thrish, holding his breath, saw more of the face emerge, a withered terrain of ancient flesh. The lips were dry fissures, peeling at the corners, the skin pale and waxen like old parchment. Deep, sulky crisscrossed the chin, sharp as a blade's point. When he smiled, it was not with joy, but exposure, a gaping maw where teeth had once been, now reduced to a few scattered calderas of infected enamel, yellowed and cracked, glistening with blood mucus. The priest's breath came in slow, rasping pulls, each exhale seeping from the darkness like a long-lost whisper. His tongue, thin, gray and twitching, with reptilian anticipation, slid eagerly over his rotted gums as his gaze devoured the relic's every line. He seemed entranced, drawn not merely by curiosity, but hunger. Behind him, the temple guards continued to encroach, tension radiating from every step. Their eyes now fixed on the object, they recognized its weight, its danger. The air itself seems to stiffen. Thrish stood motionless, feigning calm, while the relic throbbed faintly in his palm, like a second heartbeat pulsing against the stagnant air. In the corner of his vision, Serala shifted again, nimble and alert, silently marking the escape path. She was preparing, calmly, efficiently, for the moment when everything would fall apart. And it may very well. The priest took one final step. His tongue, long and gray, slithered back between crumbling teeth with a slurping gasp, a strand of saliva stretching and breaking against the stone. Thrish forced a smile, thin and deliberate, as the priest's hollow gaze fixed on him. From the shadows, a temple guard raised his spear by a breath. Thrish, the relic hunter from the Crystal Mound. The rumors are true, then. Thank you for listening to the Halion Chronicles. You journeyed until the end and likely enjoyed your travels through this episode. Let us know with a like and share it with fellow travelers of Halion. Never miss an episode, subscribe and turn on the notification to stay ahead of the unfolding saga. For free additional content, lore deep dives and more stories from Halion, visit our Substack at halionchronicles.substack.com.